This is Jeffrey from the Memphis area in Tennessee.
Jeffrey from the Memphis area in Tennessee. What's on your mind?
So I just turned 18 years old not too long ago, and I'm going into I'm going to be voting in the general election. And I don't know. I can't really bring myself to vote for Biden after everything that's happened. But the thing is, I don't really know who else there is to vote for because, the primaries will be over by the time I'm ready to vote. And like I was thinking about Cornel West, but apparently there's been some issues with him as well, right? Like he's had some bad things going on. I just don't really know.
He's had some bad things going on. Well, I mean, look,
Ultimately, it's not going to change probably policy in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, but one way or another, it is not going to change the policy. I mean, frankly, I think if people want to say, I'm not going to vote for Biden unless he calls for a ceasefire, or I'm not going to vote for Biden over this, that's all well and good. The bottom line is there's one of two people who are going to win the election. And, unless there's some type of act of God, one of those people will be Donald Trump and the other person will be Joe Biden. And there is no way, I think, at this point to really, let me put it this way. Who you vote for on November, whatever it is not going to influence Israeli, the policy that the American government is dictating towards Israel for the better.
Right.
Let's put it that way, for the better.
Yeah.
It's possible that Donald Trump could be worse. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs to the left of Joe Biden on this in the general election.
All he does, he doesn't need to mean it. All he has to say is Biden's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be interesting to see how he tries to do that, though.
What's that?
He'd definitely be more ambivalent than Biden. I think he wouldn't be as zealous.
He's not ideological about basically anything except himself.
I think he would see what was going to help him the most. I mean, I think I personally, there is, you're not going to affect the outcome and the policy on this one. It's just, we're not.
Right. Like I might vote, you're right, in ceasefire or something in New York, but that's not that empowered. And I totally sympathize with other people who thinks Biden can't be rewarded after doing this and needs to be taught a lesson. The problem is our electoral system doesn't really teach lessons.
Exactly.
So if he loses, I think that's our...
Welcome to a Saturday edition of Revolutionary Blackout Live. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ, known on social media, Jay in real life. This was a doozy here. And again, welcome. I think we're going to call this Shoot the Shit Saturdays. Shoot the Shit Saturdays, because it's a lot of content. It's a little less formal to get to. But more broadly speaking, today's topic is how to hold Joe Biden accountable for supporting a genocide in occupied Palestine. That is the question. That is the overall question that we're going to be attempting to answer, or not attempting. Let's say it this way. We're going to be showing you how not to hold him accountable. And then we're going to show you how to hold him accountable. And we're starting off, of course, with the how not to hold him accountable with this video clip from the Majority Report. Now, if you've been watching RBN for a while, at least a year, even back since the FHL days when we were known as Fred Hampton leftists, what did I always say? I said, Nick says the dumbest person in politics, in this space, I should say, not in politics, but in this online space. He always says Emma. And my vote for this is the unseen person on Majority Report. The person whose opinions are so terrible he has to be off camera. And you just heard him there at the end. I'm going to replay it. Yeah, that's our old days. Fred Hampton Leftist. That's our old name, our original name. But here, let me replay maybe the last 60 seconds of this. You can hear what Sam says, and then listen to what I think their producer called Matt. I think it's I got his last name wrong before. It's Matt something else. I thought it was something, but anyway, I think his name is Matt. If it's the same person, then listen to what the off-screen voice says.
And I think I personally, there is, you're not going to you're not going to affect the outcome and the policy on this one. It's just, we're not.
Right. Like I might vote you're right in ceasefire or something in New York, but that's not that empowered. And like, I totally sympathize with other people who thinks like Biden can't be rewarded after doing this and needs to be taught a lesson. The problem is our electoral system doesn't really teach lessons.
Our electoral system does not teach lessons. Did you hear what he said? That line is the reason this became my intro video instead of the previous one I had, which was a Jenk Uygur video. That's astounding to me. Let me read a couple of my notes here. I'm going to get to the point that he just made, but I'm going to read everything I have written down here. If U.S. policy in Palestine doesn't change, no matter who you vote for, why vote for any of them? Shouldn't that be the question? This is why you should vote third party. Now, they're using this same argument in a different way, but I would use this argument as, and I've used it, Trump and Biden policy on this is going to be the same, even RFK Jr. So why vote for them? Vote for somebody who at least has an ideology that's against what the U.S. is supporting right now. Why wouldn't you do that when you have an opportunity to stop genocide? Why wouldn't you throw your coin into the right pond at least? If you know what I mean, that wishing well. Like they want you to not even throw it in the pond. And what else do I have written down here? But this is the very reason you should vote for third party, because none of the red blue choices don't offer you non-genocide. Calling for a ceasefire at this point isn't good enough to save Biden's election bid. The death toll is at 30K plus. Because I do have a sneaky suspicion that Biden thinks that he's going to negotiate this ceasefire that lasts a month to 2 months. Then it's going to be hard to come back. Then at that point, he can say ceasefire and not really take any sort of retribution from the Zionist crowd, because they would have already been in a state of ceasefire for 2 months. Then good. Look what it is. Also, now it's June, and it's few months for election. Now he's calling for a ceasefire. Sorry. Too late. But anyway, here's some more of my notes here. And this is the part that goes to what the guy off screen just said. Our electoral system doesn't provide a way to what? Hold anyone accountable. Now let's listen exactly to the phrasing he uses here.
We sympathize with other people who thinks like Biden can't be rewarded after doing this and needs to be taught a lesson. The problem is our electoral system doesn't really teach lessons.
Exactly.
Our electoral system really doesn't teach lesson. That's amazing, because that's exactly what you guys have been telling us our electoral system does. How can you hold somebody accountable then? Is the obvious glaring question here. When you say, oh, vote for Joe Biden, but hold him accountable, how do we do that? You're admitting here that our system doesn't allow for that. And this is the part that in my notes that pertains to this. The Bernie Sanders industrial complex admits that they cannot hold politicians accountable in our electoral system of the lesser or two evil. To me, this blows up their whole strategy. Doesn't it? You're admitting we don't have any ability, but let's listen to a little bit more. I have it written down to listen to this all the way to 4-minute mark. So let's listen. It looks like it's another 40 seconds.
Exactly.
So if he loses, like, I think that's going to have to be our mission, is to say he lost because of all of this, the failure to follow through into his domestic agenda and letting centrists block that, and also the Gaza stuff. Will the general media help us?
No, there is no lesson learned, and there is no rewarding. Yeah. There is no rewarding or punishing Joe Biden in that way. Like, that is just not, that's not.
So refusing to vote for Joe Biden is not punishing Joe Biden. I think we're seeing sort of this flailing logic that's coming from the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, is that this lesser of two evil game. Let's look where we're at. We're at ending democracy versus genocide. The lesser of two evil strategy that you've been, I don't know if it's pioneering, but at least participating in, for people to, for example, like David Sirota, who says, he admits it. He's on video saying, I've been working at this for 30 years. So the lesser of two evils went from Al Gore versus George Bush. And I can recall that, even though I was young, I can recall that not being so crazy. I mean, the aftermath after the vote tallies in Florida, I'm talking about, I recall the whole pushing of lesser of two evils wasn't what it is today. They didn't have the ability to say genocide or ending democracy. But here we are. But now we're seeing the people who have advocated for this strategy not having the ability to coherently explain logically why your argument still hits. Because it doesn't. It doesn't. That's why this video is so... Now they're admitting that our system doesn't allow for holding anyone accountable. And I say that to the contrary, it does. Any system, and it's just simply not voting for them. That's holding them accountable. That is the only way. They want you to believe, the professional managerial class, that there's any other way to hold a politician accountable but withholding your vote. That is the only way you can hold a politician accountable. I guess if you say don't donate to them, but then you vote for them, to me it seems inadequate to call not supporting them financially, but then voting for them, to call that holding them accountable. To me, that's inadequate. It doesn't reach the threshold to even use that label for that. Let's listen to a little more. It's 10 more seconds.
Not what electoral politics ultimately are. It really is just a question of how much, it's just for you, what it is just an equation as to, how much can you divorce the outcomes of what you're doing from the action you take.
Did you hear what he just said here? Now I know. Now I remember why I said to take this all the way to the 4 minutes. Did you hear what Sam just said there? Now, he was trying. Now, like I said, they're finding it very hard. They're creating because they're finding it very hard to find the right words, to find the right phrasing to describe what they're saying without openly admitting things. Like the first admission that our system doesn't allow for holding anyone accountable under their definition. I say just withhold your vote. But listen to what he says here.
You know, it's just for you, what it is just an equation as to, you know, how much can you divorce the outcomes of what you're doing from the action you take and how it makes you feel.
Isn't this exactly what I have said many times when analyzing the professional managerial class, media, otherwise known as the Bernie Sanders industrial complex? I literally say this maybe once every week in a stream, or at least when I'm analyzing their videos, when they're explaining how voting is this, voting is that. It's them having the ability to disconnect the outcome of their vote. They're at the top of the hill, and then they push the cart off the hill. Now it's rolling. Now I want to disconnect the outcome of that that train I pushed off the top of the hill. Whatever it runs into, I need to disconnect that from how I feel. Truly, in my opinion, truly disgusting. But we're getting a window into the sort of self-therapy that they talk themselves into. That is amazing to me. And I know I'm spazzing. You guys probably like, this guy is spazzing over this little thing. This is amazing to me because it confirms what I've been saying they've been doing. And it's an admission that they know their vote is going to help facilitate atrocities around the world. They know that. Isn't that an admission? If you have to disconnect yourself from the actions that your vote results in, isn't that an admission that you know you're voting for something that's going to create atrocities? This is why I say clear your conscience and vote third party. Don't twist yourselves in these ridiculous circular logic that you got to tell yourself every day in order for you not to feel awful for the dead children and women we're seeing every day coming out of occupied Palestine. These people are disgusting. Ooh. You guys don't have to give me a slight moment here because this is astonishing. But let me read. Oh, actually, I don't have it. Let me pull it up. I have the same video because I clipped it and I put it on Twitter. So let's go to Twitter. So I can always go back to where we were, but this is what I wrote here. So let's got 4,000 views right now. The NATO left, aka Bernie Sanders industrial complex, is in full lesser of two evil mode. This is their time. This moment, excuse me, when Biden is on the verge of losing, the establishment calls in the sellout cavalry. This is what they make the deal for. When they're making the deal as the petty bourgeoisie to push the establishment, this is the top priority. when making that deal, when selling their soul. You have to come in and shield for the guy no matter what. When you see that bat signal, when you see that blue signal, let's do that because it's the vote blue no matter who. When you see that blue signal or that genocide signal, now we need you to shield for whoever's there, no matter what they have done. And we have reached a point to where no matter what he or she has done is now genocide. What won't they sell you out? What won't they sell out for? And then I just quote some of the things that is said in the video, but just astonishing. And actually, let's move on to another part of the presentation. The first 4 minutes and a quarter was sort of the main part, a main introduction part in answering the larger question of how to hold Joe Biden accountable for supporting genocide in occupied Palestine. I'm giving, this is an example of this is a way not to hold Joe Biden accountable, what Majority Report is doing right here. So let's now go to the next part. And the next part in this presentation is about AOC. And let's see, where do I have the article here? Oh, I'm on here, so let's go to the headline and then the article. Headline first. Did I click it? Oh, I guess I didn't. AOC right here. AOC is Nancy Pelosi. Should have made that the title. But the title, AOC does not draw the line at genocide, because that's the title of the article. So I just went with that. But in my bookmarks, it says AOC is Nancy Pelosi. So let's give another example of how not, where is it? How it says, this is a way how not to hold Joe Biden accountable. We want to hold him accountable, and AOC is displaying how not to hold him accountable in this article from Electronic Infada, or the Electronic Infada. AOC, let me say that again. The headline reads, AOC does not draw the line at genocide. And I'll read, let me go to the full article. That'll be better. Let me go to the full article here, because it's so much of the snippet I took out and put on Twitter. It's such a large amount. I might as well just go to the article and read most of the article here. So let's go to the article and read that. AOC, this is again from the Electronic Infada. AOC does not draw the line at genocide. This was written yesterday. And I'm gonna blow this up a lot so that I can see it. All right, so we're going to be diving into this article. Make sure you hit that like button. I forgot to say that at the beginning. Where am I? All right, so let's read. For some progressives, it appears there is nothing the leading Democratic presidential candidate can do that would disqualify him as the lesser evil. This apparently includes perpetuating a genocide. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez threw her full support behind Joe Biden as she advocated for voting for him during an appearance on the I've Had It podcast. And this is a video I covered, I believe it was last week, that I covered the actual video content. But back to the article. When asked if she has had it or would hit it with Biden, Ocasio-Cortez originally enthusiastically replied with "hit it," and I guess in the podcast, "hit it" means like to positive thing, to go with it or select it, I guess. Quote, "There are plenty of things that the president does that I completely disagree with," end quote. AOC said, referring to, quote, "what's happening in Gaza," end quote. Now, to piggyback on the point I made earlier in the video with Sam Cedar, when he was making in the point of how they say these things to disconnect themselves from what their vote is doing. I was saying the same thing in this video analysis of AOC that I did last week. I use this as one of the same arguments. But I digress. Back to the article. She continued, quote, "I can't go on every single day seeing this. I don't associate myself with what's happening." Very similar language to what Sam Cedar was just saying in the video. But, quote, "at the end of the day," end quote, she brushes off her fleeting mention of the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Quote, "we just can't allow this fascist movement to grow in this country," end quote. She says, noting the growing movement of Donald Trump presidential campaign. AOC says that the decision to vote for Biden is not a difficult one for me. That's funny. She has to disassociate herself and then tells us it's not a difficult one. That seems to be contradictory. That's a contradiction. She adds, quote, "just because I'm voting for him doesn't mean that he embodies everything about me," quote, end quote. Now, no one says that he embodies everything, all of the policies you believe. But what we can say is that you voting for him gives him the power to do the good stuff he's doing and the bad stuff he's doing. So you are complicit. Let's continue. The self-described progressive congresswoman implored people to be adults about the situation and cast their vote for a president now known as Genocide Joe or Butcher Biden, as he was memorably turned by Irish member of the European Parliament, Claire Daly. And shout out to Claire Daly. She is a real one. Always dropping fire with her when she's speaking on the floor of her, I think it's the Parliament in her country. And this is the section that was taken and I put on Twitter that I would have read earlier. Any pretense that AOC posed a challenge to the Democratic Party from within has now completely crumbled. But the pretense that she was ever a true fan of Palestine has long given way to political reality. After Israel bombarded the Gaza Strip for 11 consecutive days in May 2021, killing multiple generations of multiple Palestinian families, AOC switched her vote on additional U.S. funding to Israel's Iron Dome missile system from no to present amid tears on the House floor. And we all remember that acting job, that Oscar-worthy acting she did that day, over switching her vote. But look where we are now. And if you haven't seen it, I'll see if I can pull up the headline. But yeah, I think I have the headline somewhere. But AOC now says she would vote for the Iron Dome now. Yep. Now, granted, the headline is right after, like before October 15th. So it's very within a week of October 7th, when everybody was so zealous, being very being zealots about being Zionist. And now it's a completely different story. Ocasio-Cortez followed her vote with a statement saying she was, quote, opposed to this bill, but ultimately cast a present vote, casting the blame on the, quote, reckless decision by the House leadership to rush this controversial vote within a matter of hours. Isn't that cowardice to blame the process because you don't have the backbone to stand up. Despite her progressive posturing, AOC and other progressives have consistently come up short in their support for Palestinians. As journalist Glenn Greenwald said, despite her promises of a progressive platform that moved the Democratic Party forward, AOC is now one of the party's most indispensable assets. Quote, it's just wild how AOC and her followers went in 4 short years from branding herself as a major threat to the Democratic Party to becoming, without hyperbole, the most valuable tool, activist, and spokesperson for the Democratic Party. The Biden administration has given Israel carte blanche to carry out its genocide in Gaza with total impunity and near constant delivery of weaponry. The Biden administration has vetoed multiple UN resolutions calling for a ceasefire before later voting to increase aid to Gaza, obstructing an end to the killing. With the majority of the grassroots Democrats having consistently supported a ceasefire and half of Biden voters recognizing Israel's assault on the Gaza as a genocide, there are indications that the Biden re-election campaign will be threatened by his refusal to comply with the Americans with what Americans have demanded. Biden and his officials have been heckled by anti-genocide protesters at multiple events, with people urging the administration to call for ceasefire. In more than one incident, Biden loyalists drowned out protesters by shouting for more years. And we all remember that disgusting display of supporting an ongoing genocide and the person who's supporting the genocide. It was pretty disgusting, I think, to see that. Let me see what I have here. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, that's a good word to use. Okay, cool. All right, so just checking the notes, checking the chat to make sure nothing's wrong. I'm sorry. Here we go. AOC's inconsistence on backing Biden despite his administration ongoing support for Israel's genocide in Gaza is the Congresswoman's equivalent of drowning out the voices of anti-war dissenters within the party with the same reframe of 4 more years. That's a great figuratively to put that. And that's the end of the article. Thank you, whoever. Tamara, who wrote this. And so AOC and Bernie Sanders, for that matter, actually all of the progressives from Ro Khanna to Pramila Jayapal. I'm not sure about Rashida Tlaib or Cori Bush. Maybe you in the chat can give me an update on them, on how they've been critiquing the Biden administration, or at least interacting with the Biden administration concerning this. I haven't seen much from them, but AOC, this is a way not to hold Biden accountable. So now we're going to go into more of like how to hold Biden accountable. Just quickly, we're approaching 200 likes. Can we get to 300? 300 is the goal. Now let's get to the next part of this presentation, and that is Jenk Uygur. Like saying his name like that. Now, if you are not on Twitter, which is now X, I guess, if you're not on there, where is this opening at? Second, everybody. If you're not on there, you may not see or may not be aware of what Cenk Uygur from TYT has been tweeting. But he's been pulling his hair out about Joe Biden, the numbers that Joe Biden is getting, I'm going to actually pull up a couple of his tweets, one of which shows a poll. Let's actually get to that. Actually, let's go from here. Is somebody messaging me? Hold on a second here. Making sure nobody was messaging me. So let's actually go back to Twitter and get prepped for this next segment here. And this next segment is Jenk Uygur. I guess this is not actually, we're not actually on how to hold him accountable. We're still on how not to hold him accountable with this coverage or with this next segment or with Jenk Uygur, because this is Jenk Uygur hitting the panic button. And I'm going to show you a couple of his tweets. Do I have a banner for this one here? No, because this was something that was added later. So we're going to hit up some of his tweets. Let me see if I have something else for him here. I don't, but I'm going to leave this up because my other video is here. All right, so let's go to some of Jenk's tweet. We're going to start with the first one I saw that got us here. This is, and then I went and found some other tweets that he had. So we're going to go with this first one I saw here. Let's blow it up, and we're going to start. Actually, let's see here. Let's add something here. And we're going to call this one Cenk Uygur panics over Biden numbers, because that's what he's doing in all these tweets. Now, if you didn't know, Cenk is running, I guess, if you want to call it that, for president. He's not really running, but he's using the clown show of supposedly running as president as a way to get more people to watch him. They don't really have a candidate to get behind, like Bernie Sanders complex really needs a candidate during these times to push, because they're so used to it. That's how they came to prominence during the Bernie Sanders campaign. So they're so used to that. So they couldn't find a candidate this cycle. So Cenk just said, hey, I'm going to run myself. So bring you up to speed. So now let's look at this tweet here. Now, if you didn't know, Biden's approval numbers have not gotten any better. So this poll was taken January 16th through the 21st. It is over 5,000 people polled. And as a Pew Research poll, Biden approval is sitting at 33%. Did you see that? Or do you see that? 33%. And look at the disapproval. Because I think the last poll I saw, it was 33% or maybe 34%. But his disapproval it didn't break into the 60s yet. I think it was at 58. His disapproval now is at 65%. There's no way he can win re-election with numbers like this. But then the poll breaks down into categories, the support. Now, the first number is approval. The second number is disapproval. So with whites, it's 30% approve, 68% disapprove. It sort of aligns with the overall average. With blacks, it's 48-49. So very even. Now, you might be thinking, that's pretty good. One, that's not good for Joe Biden, considering the approval rating for blacks usually sits in the 60 percentile. It's usually 20% more typically than it is from what the white community typically. But look how even it is, and that's because of the young blacks under I would say under 34 and under. And then let's go to Hispanics, and this also very closely aligns with the national or the overall. It's only off by 1 point. 32% approve, 65% disapprove. what typically allows Joe Biden's numbers to look better than what they are is the black number. That's typically higher. So just even if it was up 20 more percent, now he's sitting at 38%. He's sitting at 36%, something like that, at an approval rating. Asians, also very, I wouldn't say not very close, but along the same lines, 39 to 60. So they give him the third best. They'll give him the second best rating behind blacks as Asians. And then when we're talking about schooling, we're looking here, post-grad. So doctorate, masters, 50, look at the percentage. It's very similar to blacks. Very 50-50%. Post-grad 50-50, which is bad. It's usually higher than that. College grad, meaning you have a graduate, you have a BA or an FBS or some sort of 2-year degree or something like that. So you're a college grad. Very similar to the average. It's 36% to 62%. And this is another problem because in the past, this number has almost been flipped in the past. Now it's more similar to non-college degree. Has always been this and lower, 27% to 7%. Look at that. Look at the two categories: working class people with no college degrees and people under 30. Amazing. And then it's the breakdown. So Cenk sees this and has a rant, several rants yesterday, a tweet storm, let's call it that. Here's one of them here. This is the first one I saw. This is Cenk. A Democratic nominee is losing young voters by 44 points. Wow. Wake up, Democrats. He's losing Latinos by 33 points. He's underwater with black voters. Unprecedented. He's losing women by 32 points. He's losing college grads by 26 points. These kind of disapproval numbers are historic. Now, on this point, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna insert a clip here that wasn't originally planned, but I do want to insert it, and it's here. Yeah, this did I save the second video? Okay, the second video is the one I want to play here. So let's listen.
Here's the reality.
We just saw the numbers. And you heard Cenk say these low approval numbers are historic. Not of you. Now, the lady on the far right in a previous segment, because we watched this video before, a previous segment, I said she was a Obama official. Actually, she's from the Biden administration from the first term, Biden campaign, I'm sorry. That's why she's advocating the way she is in this clip. Let's watch it.
Here's the reality. A lot of people have expressed concerns. I've expressed my own concerns, but I think that there's such a focus. There is affection for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
Always.
But there's also a great fear of Donald Trump. I think that there are a lot of people who thought about running, who quietly thought about running, and thought, I don't want to do something. He's going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party, and I don't want to damage him in that cause. And so that is the reality of what happened. As long as Joe Biden wanted to run, he was going to be the nominee of the party.
But there's always, can I just say really quickly? I mean, look, there's always, historically, there's hand-wringing, right? There's always hand-wringing around the re-election. There's always concern. I think, Axe, you could speak to concerns in 2012 about Obama's candidacy. Of course, when you're looking at a president who has had 4 years in office and people have zeroed in on their lines of attack, and this is not an unprecedented political moment. It does not mean that Joe Biden is in some way historically vulnerable. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. But
he is historically vulnerable.
I don't think that's true.
Historically vulnerable.
Then why did Democrats overperform in 2022? Why did they overperform?
We're talking about 2024, and you and I read the same polls. You know he is historically vulnerable. That doesn't make Donald Trump a world beater, but he ain't getting any younger. And these numbers haven't been getting any better. And you can't fix it. And you might be able to fix some of it with Trump. And that's why you want Trump so bad. You say he's a threat to democracy, but you've been begging to put him on the ballot, which I still don't understand. But he is historically vulnerable for exactly the reasons Van just pointed out. You've got tons of constituencies who are mad about what's been done for them or not done for them. And you've got a bunch of people who don't think he's got the mental capacity to hold the office. It is historic vulnerability in this incumbent.
It is also
historic. You heard the spin. So you understand, if you're only watching corporate news, it's not historic. Because if you're watching CNN, you're like, oh, that's a Republican. He's lying. The other girl said it's not historic, or the other lady, a woman, said it's not historic. So I'm just going to believe her when we just went over the numbers. We just showed you the numbers with the Jenk tweet. Corporate media, the propagandas depend heavily, not exclusively, depends heavily on you not having the ability to look into things and know details and be able to spot that's a lie. And because this has been the way it's been, they tell multiple lies. Just feel what lies. You would think, oh, it's one or two. No. It's like whole sentences, whole segments. Because they know they got you out there working paycheck to paycheck. Got your daughter in ballet, got your son in football. You don't have the ability to go check out what this person said is a lie or true or not. It's very dependent on that. But anyway, let's get back to the presentation, and we're gonna go now back to the Jenk tweets because I wanted to just insert that part because it was relevant. But let's go back here, and we examine the first part. And this is something. Now, let me go back to this tweet here because I didn't read all of it. A Democratic nominee is losing young voters by 44%. Oh, actually, I did read all of it. My bad. I did read all of it. But I wanted to go back and go over the numbers. Young voters, 44 points. I said percent earlier, but points. That is insane. That is insane. Latinos, 30. That is insane, and they're refusing to change this guy out, man. Talking about, well, if he wants to run, what do you mean? It is your duty if you believe that Trump is a real threat. Isn't it your duty to hold a primary? When you see this softness in support for, and this is not softness in the fringe support, not in like the suburban mom support. This is softness in your floor, your base. But here's another one. He has same thing in the same poll where he's still panicking. And he goes on to say, these numbers are catastrophic. If you think Biden can recover from numbers this low, you're completely delusional. I've never seen anything like this, where one party is just giving away the election. If you don't understand Biden is going to lose, you don't understand politics. And this is one case where I can say I agree 100% with what Cenk is saying here. How do you not see that that Joe Biden is about to lose? How do you not see that? But it's the arrogance of the establishment to say, you're going to do it our way. Yes, our way is not working, but we're gonna force this square into this round peg. We're gonna force it. He goes on. So those first two there. He also goes on here to say, Democrats genuinely think I'm the bad guy. Make sure the sound is good. For pointing out obvious things like this. So much of politics and media is structured around getting you to believe what the powerful want you to believe instead of what is real. But when the reality is this obvious, it'll never work. I think I got one or two more of him panicking here. One. And I might do a check just to see did he wake up today also panicking, seeing something else. Here's another one here. This primary is almost over, and the Democrats have chosen to lose to Trump by picking an awful candidate who is a historic disapproval number. So I'm going to run to send a message. In the war against Gaza, these choices suck in the corruption of donor money. Let's go to his page and see. He's talking about Trump there. Oh, it's a Fetterman. He's out doing something else. I didn't have time to prepare, but Fetterman is putting his foot in his mouth anymore, but that's not what we're doing today. All right, so there is no more. I just wanted to make sure there was no updated tweet, because like I said yesterday, this is not even all of them. He tweeted some more. These are just the four that I picked to go over. But yeah, that is Cenk. But this is again, this is an example of how not to support. How not to hold Joe Biden accountable, because you know what Jenk Uygur is going to do. All of the tweets that I read to you, all of the things you saw me read to you. This guy's going to vote for Joe Biden in November, and he's going to tell his audience that we should vote for Joe Biden in November. But he's saying all of this stuff right now. That's Cenk Uygur. That's the professional managerial class. That's the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. That's the NATO left. I just said this, but this is the line. This is the official line I wrote down, but I already just said this. But Cenk has all these critiques of Biden and Dems, but will gleefully vote blue every time. So yeah. Now is where the time we're gonna get into how to actually hold Joe Biden accountable, and really, Joe Biden accountable. Let's talk specifically about Joe Biden. And the way this next sort of presentation is just a series of different short videos that we're going to be covering, that Case Study QB has kind enough to put together and watch all these shows, because a lot of them are very short. Like, you got to watch an entire episode of a 60 minutes of a, not 60-minute show, but an entire hour-long show in order to get 30-second clip. You get what I'm saying? I would never watch a show just to get that. And he does, so kudos to him. Our goals 300 likes. We're currently at 250. We've got 50 more to go. Make sure you hit that like button, get us to 300, and then we'll set another target here. All right, let's get into the next part, and I'm going to read a couple of your super chats really quick and then continue on here. I'm going to read a couple of your super chats. Let's see what the first one is here. I thought I added something else on here. Where's my phone here? I add. So here is the first super chat. Thank you, Buster Peak. Sam doing his best Kamala Harris impression. Thank you for that super chat. This one here from Grassy Knoll, a super sticker. Thank you for that. This one here from Named My Taco. Yesterday, Nick cried because of the ICC ruling. AOC and the other psychopaths harden their hearts and don't let the world affect them. Vulnerability is hard. Absolutely. So thank you for that name, my taco. Love the name. And then welcome a couple of new members. Actually, one new member, and that is Lee A. Royster. Yes, brand new member. Royster Jr., I should say. Brand new member. I'm a junior too. Welcome to the RBN family on YouTube. Thank you for becoming a member. You also get, wow, you're going to become a new member and then drop 20 new memberships. Isn't that something so generous of Lee? Give everybody, show Lee some love in the chat. He just gave you guys 20 free memberships, gifted free memberships. That is freaking awesome. Much appreciated. Brand new member, Lee A. Royster Jr. Let me say the full name. Thank you for that. That is awesome. I think that's the highest number we've ever seen. We get a lot of gifting. We get a lot of generous gifting too. Don't get me wrong. This 20 is great. We've got some very close, and we appreciate all of them. So make sure you show them some love in the chat. And now, what I was gonna check is to make sure there's not. Oh, no, I don't need to play that video. No, I was thinking of inserting another video, a new video I found at the last minute. I was thinking of inserting it here, but I'm thinking, no, let's do it. All right, let's do it because it is it's helpful to understand when setting up this next part. So let's do it. So let's pull up Glenn Greenwald and let's begin this next the second half of our presentation. We had a short little intermission to shout out some super chats, but now let's get back into the presentation. And now we're gonna give you the second part, the second half, which is how to hold Biden accountable. We just went over how not to do it with AOC, with Jenk, and some others. Now we're going to go over how to do it. Make sure you hit that like button. Oh, let me just shout this out since I'm here. Last one. Thanks for what you do. Keep up the good fight. Thank you, Jamal. Very generous super chat, $20 super chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of the super chats that everybody sends us, and we appreciate that one. All right, so final one, I got that one in. Let's make sure, let's set a new target of 375 for our likes. 375. Hit that like button. Get us to 375. We got plenty of people here to do that. But now let's get into this next segment here. And Glenn Greenwald kind of gives us a baseline to start with. So let's start with Glenn. He has a video, and his video, if you want to go watch it later, because we're going to watch the full video. Will Biden's unwavering Israel support cost him the election? And that's the Glenn Greenwald title for his video. Let's watch.
Speaking of Joe Biden's political priorities, it is extremely odd to hear Democrats on the one hand say that there is no greater priority in the world than making sure Trump doesn't return to power. If he returns to power, he's going to implement a white supremacist dictatorship. He's going to end all American democracy. He's going to be a Hitler figure. You would think anyone who really believes that would be willing to do anything and everything to make sure they win this 2024 election. Now, they are willing to do a lot of things. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a preposterous candidate called Nikki Haley. They are trying to strike Trump from the ballot to prevent people from voting for him. They're trying to imprison Trump, all the things we've gone through. But one of the things that is really endangering Joe Biden's political prospects is the fact that huge numbers of people in his own party on whom he is relying, not only to be willing to vote for him, but to get up and be passionate and go to the polls and vote for him, without whom he has no chance for re-election, aren't just opposed to his policy of supporting Israel, but are so vehemently opposed to it that they are saying over and over now that they will not vote for Joe Biden because they believe that what he's doing in Gaza and in Israel by supporting Israel and arming it and funding it constitutes genocide. And once you reach that conclusion, it is very difficult to say, well, I believe Biden is guilty of genocide, but I'm still going to vote for him on a lesser of two evils.
Now, if you listen to Sam Cedar, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, or anybody in the NATO left, they have this ability to say, this is a genocide, but then to go on and say, I'm going to support them. Now you see why AOC in the professional managerial class, we see that the professional managerial class use the same sort of phrasing, how you have to disconnect from your vote. They want you to do that too. They want you to become just as depraved as they are. I say vote your conscience. Vote third party and vote your conscience. Have a clear conscience. Let's go.
Rationale, what is actually the lesser evil once you accuse somebody of genocide? And you could see this coming from a mile away. You've had Arab and Muslim voters in key swing states like Michigan saying now for months, we are not voting for Joe Biden. And you've had left-wing voters and young voters who are horrified by Biden's steadfast support for Israel who are saying the same thing. And I think there was a time for a month or so when the Biden White House did not take seriously the claim that these voters wouldn't snap into line, because understandably, it's true that left-wing voters in the United States have a very strong tendency to snap into line and do what they're told and go vote for the Democrats when they're told to, no matter how angry they are along the way. But this seems to be reaching a point of kind of sustained rage, of the kind of anger that Democrats had to Lyndon Johnson during the Vietnam War that forced Lyndon Johnson not to seek re-election. It really is starting to reach that level of sustained protest. Everywhere Democratic Party office holders go, they're interrupted by protesters, angry protesters, accusing them of genocide. Leave aside for the moment whatever your views are on the war and whether you support Biden's arming and financing of Israel. I'm just saying politically, this has become a serious risk. Here from the Wall Street Journal today, the headline, Biden aides fret that support for Israel will hurt his re-election prospects. The president is seeing routine pro-Palestinian protests at his campaign event. Quote, some of President Biden's senior aides are becoming increasingly worried that his support for Israel's war in Gaza risks damaging his re-election prospects amid cratering support from young voters. Biden advisors are divided on the seriousness of the political threat. Some see a real risk that disillusioned young voters will stay home because of the Israel issue and because of other concerns about the president. Other aides are confident that most of those voters will end up giving priority to other issues above Israel and that they will vote for Biden rather than risk another Trump administration. Pro-Palestinian protests aimed at the president are getting increasingly loud activists opposing Israel's military offensive in Gaza interrupted Biden during a rally Wednesday with auto workers a day after they heckled him at a campaign speech, back-to-back outbursts that represent the loudest protest movement Biden has faced since taking office. Quote, I don't think there's going to be anywhere that Biden goes during this campaign where he won't be disrupted or where there won't be dissent, said Sandro Tamari, the executive director of the Abala Justice Project, a U.S.-based organization that advocates for Palestinian rights and has participated in some of the protests. Now,
let me pause there. It's not looking good for Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden is going to support a genocide, we have to ask ourselves, for those who are against genocide, how do you hold him accountable for those who would never vote for him? And how do you hold him accountable for those who would vote for him or who have in the past vote for him? In a previous segment, we talked about how to hold a politician accountable. The professional managerial class wants you to believe there's other ways of holding a politician accountable other than not voting for them. That's what they want you to believe. Now let's go back to Twitter to get to the rest of this presentation. Now the next sort of video we have is here. Okay. Yeah, let's go to without being heckled. All right, so I have this separated. I'm glad I have this organized. Without being heckled is what it's called right here. So here is the first video we're going to be starting with. And I'll read the caption. Biden interrupted more than 13 times at the protest. Now, like I said, we're going to be doing a bunch of these little short videos. Like I said, shout out to Case Study QB for curating these videos for all of us to watch without having to sit through the terribleness that is corporate media. I could not do it, but this video talks about him being interrupted 13 times, and then it also talks about issues with youth and progressives. So let's watch this video and then we'll comment on the other side.
Something we saw yesterday when Joe Biden was there the first time in this campaign, Betsy, that he was side by side with the vice president and each of their spouses. They were focused on reproductive rights. Giant words said "Restore Roe" over their shoulders. But frankly, for anybody watching, myself included, he was interrupted more than 13 times by protesters there. And it did sort of reveal within the Democratic Party, frankly, some of the real challenges that Joe Biden faces right now, certainly among the young voters, among progressives as well. 13 times he was interrupted, just another interruption that took place during his event with the UAW today.
Yeah, it's a real sense of source of softness within his Democratic activist base. Of course, the vice president has worked overtime to try to shore up that wing of the party, the more progressive wing that the president just hasn't always had on lock for much of his career. But the fact that he can barely do an event that's open to the public without getting heckled or addressed, shall we say, on this issue. One thing that just highlights is how unpredictable these election cycles can be. It takes one day of violence followed by a war breaking out that nobody in the U.S. would have predicted, certainly not in the U.S. intelligence community. And it dramatically, or thus far appears to dramatically be shaking some of the political dynamics in ways people hadn't expected. It's a long time till November, and that's part of the reason that these cycles are always just weirder than you might think.
And they keep saying that. It's a long time to November. To me, if I was a Democratic voter, that would be so insulting to me that just on that I would not come out and vote because you just saying you just gonna do what the fuck you want to do and not listen to me. That's what they're basically saying, that just let them blow off a little steam. They'll be back. That's essentially what they're saying about you, and are you gonna fall in line and do that? Let's get to the next video. Heckled at UAW. We're gonna start with the Debbie Dingle video though. So this next one is talking about Heckle. What did I say? What was it? Here it goes. Debbie Dingle video first. That's what we're gonna do. Now, let's set this up. This is Debbie Dingle. If you don't know, Rep Debbie Dingle in the house. She is a Michigan rep, so she is from Michigan. So this hits with her close to home, as you would say. And it says Michigan Rep Debbie Dingle was asked about ceasefire protesters and the loss of support from the Muslim community. Now let's listen to what she says here. There's a second video to this, but it's for a different part. But let's listen to this part from Debbie Dingle, and then we'll get to the second video.
So the Democratic Party relies a lot on Michigan's Muslim American population, which helped Biden win the state in 2020. This days, President Biden can't give a speech without being interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters because of his support for Israel in the Israel-Hamas war. Watch what happened just earlier today when he was addressing UAW members.
No matter what that was, it should be.
So in 2020, Biden won Michigan by less than 200,000 votes, fewer than 200,000 votes, and there are more than 200,000 Muslim American voters in Michigan.
200,000 votes. You can see it there. Biden has 2,804,000. Trump has 2,649,000. So if there's more Muslim voters than there is the margin, you see how that becomes problematic when a campaign called Abandon Biden is created. But let's continue.
How worried are you that President Biden's support for Israel in the war against Hamas might doom the president in Michigan?
So, Jake, you know that I've always told everybody Michigan is a competitive state. It is never one that you can take for granted, and it's a purple state. There are a lot of very strong feelings on this issue. But remember, we're talking about the opponent of President Biden as being someone who wants to ban Muslims. You've got to remind people of that. This is an issue that is a lot of people on both sides have had family members that have been held hostage on the Gaza side. Can I tell you how many of my constituents have had family members that have been killed, have no food, no water, the casework that I'm doing? But today I witnessed the president have a very respectful conversation with some UAW members who raised it. I know he knows how to talk to people. It's an issue we're going to have to talk about and deal with. But again, it's going to be a contrast, and we need to remind people of the facts and who we've got to address this issue in the Mideast. It's an issue that's a big issue in many places, but I would not put our foreign affairs in the hands of Donald Trump ever.
You see how it's problematic. I'm sorry. The setup of the Biden administration is problematic. The problem is you're going out and saying, oh, let's understand and compassion. And yeah, this is hard and this is complicated, as you are sending them weapons and money behind Congress's back. Like those two things, do you think the Muslim and Arab populations and communities around the country, and specifically in Michigan, do you think they don't hear this? They don't have news reports in Dearborn. They don't have news reports. That's what's so bizarre. But this is also a reason you're starting to hear more and more about Biden is mad at Netanyahu, because they need to create this narrative that he's mad at what's happening. As if, I just don't understand how they think that narrative is going to stick when he supports them at the same time. It's such a bizarre dynamic. In order to get the people you need, you have to stop doing the things you're doing to show support for Israel, which you're not going to stop doing. It's a terrible situation, and this is the reason why she was so flustered. She had nothing but to say the other guy's worse, because there's no answer. They're not going to change their policy. Now here's another one. Biden heckled multiple times in his speech, and they don't show the heckling, but they actually, I don't know if they do. But let's play this. This is I think this is the Faulkner Report or Faulkner Focus, whatever the name of her show is. And let's listen to what she says. She has a Dem and GOP strategist, I believe, on.
President Biden was heckled more than a dozen times in speeches this week. Let's watch. An op-ed calling this a warning sign for his re-election bid. Quote, while the president's surrogates can try to chalk up these incidents as unrepresentative of the Democratic base, the heckler's dissatisfaction with the president is far more reflective of his voters than he would care to admit. Elections are won on the margins, and if the candidate's support among his own base begins to slip only slightly, it could prove fatal in a general election. Let's go to a former surrogate now, Kevin Walling. Your take.
Yeah, Harris, I mean, I think, you know, and I think Matt would probably agree with me, you know, 2024 is going to be a base election. This isn't going to be a persuasion election, right? You have a few folks in the middle that are going to decide between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but both parties have got to run up their margins. And a key constituent of the Democratic Party is young people. And we're seeing time and time again, the young people feel really strongly about what they're seeing out of the Middle East.
But this issue about the Middle East, though, isn't just among the young. We are seeing that play out in you know, pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel and all sorts of things across the country on college universities. But it's not only the young.
No, it's a good point. Not just the young, right? We're seeing it actually in the state of Michigan, which is going to be a key battleground state, Harris, with, you know, the Arab American community, the Muslim American community, which is a key base of support also for the president. And that's, to your point, all ages. So, you know, we've got 10 months to adjudicate this election. I think a lot of those folks are going to come back home to the president, especially when they see, you know, Donald Trump campaigning again on the Muslim ban and martial law in our cities that he's putting forward. So hopefully those folks will come home to us and we'll make a concerted effort to bring them home.
Not looking good. Now, again, all they have is Trump bad and they're going to come back home. So again, if I was a protester, you know how upset, you know how disrespectful that is? You out here protesting, yelling, making signs every day, walking for miles, for hours. And they just think you're just doing this for show. Like it's a fad. Like, oh, you're just gonna like you're one of them. You're just virtue signaling and you're gonna come back home. And I'm saying I don't see that. And I agree with Glenn Greenwald, what he was saying in his video. This seems different. When we get to the level of protest where people are being protested, and it's not just people, the president is going and being protested. And if he's going to be campaigning, he's leaving himself wide open because when you campaign, you have to be open to the public. So there's no way of keeping this people out. And if he's doing a larger event, the threshold to be allowed in is even lower. Like when you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So you're not going to avoid this. Let's continue. Actually, let me look and see what's the next video here. So Debbie Dingo, we did that. So let's do the next one here. Actually, let me say this about Debbie Dingo because I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Debbie Dingo avoids the question in that video. But she says, what is he going to do or what can he do? She never says what he can do. She just says we have to talk and understand because there's not really anything he could do because she knows policy-wise there will not be a single change whatsoever. Let's go to our next one now. So Debbie panics in Michigan because there's a second part to this video. Did I label it that? There's a second part. Oh, here it goes. Debbie panics and that's this second part. So let's listen to the second part of this same interview. And the reason I have it separately, because I wanted to make sure I point out, listen to the panic here. For some reason, she always seems kind of panicked. Like she just came from running up the stairs or something like that. But she's very panicked in this video. Let's watch.
But I've heard interviews with Muslim American voters in Michigan. These are smart people. They're not saying they're going to vote for Trump. They say they're not going to vote.
I think that we have to have, you know what, look, people are concerned, they're worried. I talk to them every single day. But I'm also beginning to have people say who 2 months ago were very angry, and I'm like, you'd rather have Donald Trump? And today they're saying he would really hurt this country. The damage he could do was bad. I think we've got to address this issue. Policymakers, all of us have a responsibility to get this issue addressed, to take care of the people of Palestine. We need a two-state solution. I think that what Netanyahu is saying about not having a two-state solution is something we should all pay attention to deal with this issue. I've been clear about that.
But I've heard interviews with Muslim American.
Now, notice how she doesn't answer the question, and she starts a sentence, and then starts a different sentence, and then starts a third sentence. I'm going to play the first several seconds first so you can hear what I mean. This is a person who's out of answers on what to do here. When you're locked in knowing my government is not going to change policy on Israel.
American voters in Michigan. These are smart people. They're not saying they're going to vote for Trump. They say they're not going to vote.
I think that we have to have, you know what, look, people are.
I think that we should have, you know what's a, man, look. That's 3 sentences there. That's a person who is absolutely flustered here. Now, I want to go to another video, and the next video is Democrats caught on a hot mic. So let's play this next video. This is also Case Study QB. Most of these are all Case Study QB. And let me read the caption first. It says, Biden struggling to speak, hot mic moment, and Van Jones advice to Joe Biden. That's all was wrapped into this clip here. It's 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Let's watch all of it. It's from Fox News, or starting with Fox News. Let's listen.
But, during his speech, you're going to hear from the president. You're going to hear from CNN's Van Jones. You're going to also hear Democrats caught on a hot mic. Watch this.
Don't mess with the men in America unless you want to get the benefit.
What did he say?
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep. They're going to have to have a lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
If I were Biden, I would.
Did you hear that? Now, we're listening during the sound when it's just the audience sound. If you listen closely, you can hear Democrats talking about the protest they just saw Joe Biden go through, and they're saying that's going to happen all the time. So let's play it again. I rewind it, but let's listen to the background after Joe Biden stopped speaking.
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep.
That's going to happen constantly. And then another person said, yup.
Have to have a lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
If I were.
Wow. They say that was interesting. And he says, that's going to happen constantly. And he goes, yup. He says the other couple of things, but that's the gist of what you hear on a hot mic. I'm going to let it play all the way out now.
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep. They're going to have to have a lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
If I were Biden, I would stay hidden. And I'll tell you why. He doesn't inspire confidence. And he's not a great messenger for himself. There's something wrong with this campaign where we're somehow expecting Joe Biden, who frankly hid during the last campaign, to come out now and be Flash Gordon and face this his own campaign. Part of what we're looking at as Trump's strength, his resilience, is really a reflection of Biden's fragility. Republicans are not afraid of Joe Biden. They're not afraid. They don't think that by putting up somebody this damaged, frankly, this deranged, with this many deficits, is going to hurt them at all.
Okay, Caroline, let's just take it from the top. We think the president said, don't mess with the women of America unless you want to get the benefit. That, that sentence, unfortunately,
yeah,
still
that was
does not make
inaudible.
sense.
I didn't understand
the Democrats caught on a hot mic, Caroline, were saying, this is the way it's going to happen constantly. They're going to have a lot more security laid down around the place because of the hecklers and protesters. Doesn't feel good for the race right now for the White House.
All of those clips demonstrate that Biden isn't winning with moderates. He's not winning with the far left flank, the rabid progressives that want us to completely withdraw support for Israel. He's not winning with the old school Democrats. He's really not winning at all, partly because he's too incoherent to really conduct himself as a president should. He's clearly mentally deteriorating to the point of no return. But he's not winning on the issues. His national pitch is not very compelling to most Americans who are simply struggling with economic hardships. And now the border crisis is flooding into their communities. So, Biden, it's just not winning.
Amazing. And the hot mic, being caught on the hot mic, saying that, like, it's an acknowledgement, your base is very upset, and instead of doing anything to placate them, you're just gonna add more security. You're just gonna put a barrier up. We ain't giving them anything. Just put some more fence up, put some more security up at the door. But you want to vote for them. I don't understand that. I don't get that part. Let's now move to the next clip, and this next clip is an audio only, and it's a poster talking about how, in order to mobilize young people, you can't mobilize them around Trump bad anymore. So this next clip, not mobilized around Trump. So let's listen to this next clip. Not mobilizing around Trump any longer. Hang on a second. I always do this where I'm caught up. Right here. So now you may recognize his name. What's his name again? Terrence Woodbury. Now, I've seen him personally on MSNBC several times doing segments on the Readout, to be specific. And they always bring him on to talk about what's going on, because he's a pollster, by the way. He's a Democratic pollster, by the way. So this is the Democratic pollster, Terrence Woodbury, talking about giving advice on young voters and voters of color. So let's listen. This is his company. It's called Hit Strategies. That's his company. Let's listen.
There are young voters that are not mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. I think now he has about 8 months to tell that story. And more important, not just take a victory lap and tell them, look at how much I've done for you, but look at how much we've gotten done because you voted, and remind them the power and the efficacy of that vote if we're going to expect them to do it again. There are young voters.
My bad, everybody. I didn't have it fully open. I mean, you heard it is only sound, but I didn't have it fully open just so it looks nicer. Now let's replay it. Let's replay it, and then I'll stop and start.
There are young voters that are not mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And
so what he's saying is that young voters, you're not fooling them with rhetoric. And I would hope that media spaces like RBN, like, you know, Convo Couch, all of our buddies, Jimmy Dore, and TikTok have contributed to this. This is why there's such a TikTok is in the hot seat, because of its influence and its inability to control the narrative on TikTok. And there's just young people just spitting fire on TikTok. But this is the reason why for the censorship. But you hear what he says. He says young people aren't fooled by this nonsense. Okay, they're not fooled by that. You can't. Oh, Trump bad. Yeah. Okay. It's like they only respond to tangible things. That I agree with. Now, where his job comes in is to come on and give advice to say, now this is what they need. They are influenced by tangible things. Now go in and lie to them about how you did tangible shit. That's what he goes on to say later in this video. So let's listen to the rest of it.
The reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime.
He has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. Understand, there's a couple of things. Understand this phrasing of using historical references to say something is this or that. This is a propaganda trick. Because if you say that anybody in my lifetime, let's think about who's been in your lifetime. Barack Obama, terrible. George Bush, both of them, terrible. W and HW, terrible. Bill Clinton, terrible. So what does it say, really, to say in my lifetime, Joe Biden has done A, B, or C when you're looking at who you're comparing it to? Give me the raw information, not in comparison to somebody else, because you can say, I can classify me giving you 2 pennies as historical if I gave you 1 penny every single year, and then one year I decide to give you 2 pennies, I can label that as historical. I can label that. That's the most money he's given me in my lifetime. But it's just 2 pennies. So, but just as a side note, Black people who push this nonsense, it's despicable to me. This guy, Terrence Woodbury. But to push that Joe Biden has done these things, and to use this phrasing that he's done, he has been on the right side of these topics that you list the most in your lifetime. Let's listen to him say that again.
Communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion,
student loan, he has done more in his lifetime. I guess you can say that, but it goes to the comparison that I said. In my lifetime, yes. But when you look at the actual number of the amount he has forgiven, it is literally less than 10% of the debt. When I looked at the pie chart, when you look at a pie chart, it's like a sliver. When you look at the pie chart, it's like a sliver that he has canceled. Do I have that as a receipt somewhere? I always forget where I put them in my bookmarks. Student loan. I actually may have a receipt for that. Student loan. Yeah, I do. So let me find that. Oh no. Let's see. I'm getting close. Do I have it? Oh, no. Okay. It's a pie chart like this that I was hoping I still had, but unfortunately I do not have it any longer. So we'll go back to what we were covering here. So I don't have the receipt to show you. So let's go back to the not mobilized by Trump and finish out this part of this segment here.
Mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more.
Climate change, student loan, and abortion. Oh, he's on video saying he's not really down for abortion. That's years ago. You can say that. Could that be the reason he's not really fighting for it? And 2 and 3, Democrats are the one that sat back and allowed it to be taken away. Now somehow they're going to be the fierce advocates to get it. Remember, you were the fierce advocate as it was being removed. But he's going to say he has done more. How can you say that Joe Biden has done more on that? And then you're talking about student loans. We just covered that. And what was the other couple of things? Climate change. I hope you're not referring to the IRA. The Black Agenda Report did a great write-up on this, how the IRA is actually not a climate bill, it's an anti-climate bill. The IRA, they boast about some quote-unquote climate measures. But in the same bill, there's things that go against the very climate measures, opening up more land for drilling. And it's other things in the bill, but it's essentially the way I described it when I covered it is that the IRA is essentially, it's like a sinking boat. You have a hole in your boat, you're sinking. It's you and another person. You have a bucket. You're taking the water out of the boat, dumping it back into the body of water to help save the boat. Your passenger is taking water out from the body of water, the ocean, the river, in the boat, in the bucket, and helping the hole and putting it into the boat. That's what the IRA does for climate change. So to act like Joe Biden has done something on climate, don't talk about minimum wage. He has done nothing on minimum wage, has done nothing on voting rights. If that's something you are into, if you're a person into that, not particular for me, but there are some that are into that. He hasn't.
Change in student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. I think now he has about 8 months to tell that story. And more important, not just take a victory lap and tell them, look at how much I've done for you, but look at how much we've gotten done because you voted, and remind them the power and the efficacy of that vote if we're going to expect them to do it again.
So this is what's so bizarre. So he's done such good things. It's so good that but somehow I haven't heard about it. Is it really that good if I haven't heard about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to watch the news to know about stimulus checks coming out, because everybody in the neighborhood gonna be talking about stimulus checks. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's absurd that you're saying that we've done so much good shit, but people just don't know. Why aren't they being affected by all the good shit you're doing? That would be my question. But let's continue with the presentation, and we're coming towards the end of the presentation here. Let's go into some of this other videos we have here. Biden approval rating. Is it this one? Yes. Now here goes Biden's approval rating, which we went over, but what I wanted to show you was this. Half of Biden voters say Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And this goes to the point that I think it was Glenn Greenwald was making. how, if you believe it's a genocide, how do you tell yourself now I'm going to vote for the person that's supporting the genocide? So the very fact that this poll is showing Biden voters, that half of Biden voters believe it's a genocide, you know how much of a leap you got to be to now go lesser of two? What? So because you got to now project in your own mind what's worse. In order for genocide to be the lesser, what's worse? You get what I'm saying? This is such a tall task that you have to create, because it's not normal a Trump derangement you have to sell. You have to sell a higher level of Trump derangement that's higher than genocide. Let's get into this article here. This is the headline. I have it. Actually, let's click on it. And it's from Nick. And let's read. Or actually, Nick just puts the headline up. Now, here's the actual article we're going to be bringing up here, and this is from The Hill, and it's written by Nick Roberson. It came out a couple of days ago, and this was actually hidden. You go to the page, you try to look for it, you go to politics. Guess where this was? Now, based on the title, or you already saw it. I don't need to hide it for you, but based on the title, what would you think? Would you think? Let me ask it this way: would you think it would be listed under defense? This is listed under defense because I was trying to find his headline. Nick didn't put a link to the headline, so I was trying to find it, and it took me a while to find it. I literally had to go through several pages. It took me like 15 minutes to find the article, but it was listed in the category of defense. To me, that's them trying to hide the article. What this is to me. They don't want people to know this. But anyway, Nick found it. Let's read some of it. Again, the headline reads, half of Biden voters say Israel committing genocide in Gaza. And let's read a little bit of it. Pop up on this site. So just be forewarned. This site has a bunch of pop-ups that happen. Half of voters for President Biden in 2020 believe, let me make sure my sound is good. Yes. Half of voters for President Biden in 2020 believe the Israeli government is committing a genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, according to a YouGov The Economist poll released Thursday. The poll found that 51% of Biden 2020 voters believe the Israeli government ground invasion of Gaza is too harsh, and 58% of the same group believe the conflict is likely to widen into a greater Middle East war. The Israeli military has redubbed its efforts in recent weeks to eliminate Hamas in Gaza via a ground campaign and mass airstrikes. Critics claim the Israeli military efforts are often aimed at driving the Palestinian population out of Gaza, citing reports of targeted attacks at universities, hospitals, and cemeteries. The Biden administration has stepped up pressure on the Israeli government to scale down its military operations and encourage a Palestinian civilian government, though Israeli leaders have resisted the call. An increasing number of Democrats in Congress have gone further, calling on Biden to directly urge the Israeli government to seek a ceasefire in the conflict. About 60 members of the House and 5 senators have called for a ceasefire, according to the Progressive Working Families Party. Biden has publicly denounced the prospects of a permanent ceasefire, but the White House said Thursday that CIA Director William Burns has been a key figure in brokering a potential second hostage ceasefire deal between Israel, Hamas, Qatar, and the U.S. Protesters advocating for a ceasefire in the conflict have followed Biden around the country, consistently interrupting and at times drowning out his speeches and other public appearances. The survey comes as the International Court of Justice is expected to announce a preliminary decision Friday in South Africa's decision alleging Israel is committing genocide. And I can pause there. They have came to a conclusion as to say something very vague, but essentially that to stop doing anything, but it's based on sort of scouts honor. Let me just trust you, Israel. Do this, Israel, and we're just going to trust that you do it. That's essentially sort of what the ruling is. But let's get into some of the actual poll here down low. I'll skip this part here, and I'm going to get into the actual poll here. Actually, let me read all of this because this is just telling you how many were polled and the margin of error. The international community, especially the United Nations, has been a loud advocate for the ceasefire in the conflict to assist Palestinian civilians. The UN said that nearly the entirety of Gaza's 2.3 million population has been displaced by the conflict and needs humanitarian aid. In recent weeks, UN officials have warned of spreading disease and an increase in risk of famine in Gaza. The YouGov Economist poll surveyed 1,600 people over this week with a margin of error of 4%. So this spells very bad news for Joe Biden. Like, there's not much. I mean, I don't really see what he could do at this point. The military-industrial complex is entrenched in the position it holds with Israel because with all that Israel does, Israel is still an outpost. It's like a military outpost, and the United States doesn't want to give up that military outpost. But the value of the military outpost is now starting to be analyzed, because what value are you getting out of it when public sentiment about the outpost is what it is? I'm just posing the question. I don't know what the answer to, the question will be. I'm just simply posing it. But now let's get into the final part of this presentation, and it's the part that's probably going to take, be the shortest. But now let's talk about Detroit Muslim and Arab organizations who canceled a meeting on Joe Biden. This is astonishing to me, or this is not astonishing, but it's very shocking. But it's actually based. I love it. So let's get into it. And where are we gonna go? Let's go to my bookmarks. And Michigan Arab snub Biden. Let's get to some couple of headlines here. Actually, let's go back. Let's go to a couple of headlines. We'll start with this one. This next one, let me make sure I don't have any super chats. Actually, let me read this super chat before I get to this last segment here. And it's probably take another 10 minutes, last segment. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. As we always say, check to make sure you are subscribed, because people are being unsubscribed all the time. Also, we're at 351 likes. Thank you for hitting our first target, but our second target is still 375, but we're going to up that target and make the next target 425. So let's make it 420. Yeah, how about that? 420. That's a good number, right? We love that number, 420. So 420 is the target. Let's get to that target. We currently have 350 people watching, 350 likes, 430 people watching. Let's make sure we hit that like button. Thank you so very, very much. And what did I say here? Let's update these numbers. And then we get into this final segment here. All right, so now let's get into it. Detroit Muslim and Arab organizations cancel on the Biden administration. And here's the headline: Biden re-election campaign team travels to Michigan but is shunned by some Arab American leaders. That's one headline that you see there. Let me go to this next headline. Here's another one. Not welcome here. Arab American leaders cancel Dearborn meeting with Biden campaign manager. I think I might read that one. Is there another headline? And that's the one we just read. So yeah, I think I'm going to read the full article. Let's bring up the full article instead of reading the snippet. I'm going to do it the same way I did it last time. Where is it? My bad, everybody. I did not hit the right one. So now it's Detroit News is where it's from. I misspoke. That's not the right source. So this article that I'm bringing up is actually from the Detroit News. The Detroit News. Here we go. My bad, everybody. I had to make double back because I thought it was one resource, but it was Detroit News. So here we go. Detroit News. So you know something is up when the local paper, the local news outlet is describing things this way. I love using local sources because they are so much more accurate in their headlines about what it's like on the ground. And when we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Dearborn, we're talking about Detroit and the Muslim community, this headline is very spot on. Not welcome here. Arab leaders cancel Dearborn meeting with Biden campaign manager. I'm going to blow it up a little bit here so I can read the details of body. But let's read. Let me center this. The organizers of a planned meeting between President Joe Biden's campaign manager and a group of Arab and Muslim American leaders in Dearborn said it was canceled Friday after some in the wider community objected to the gathering amid fury over Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. And I'm going to read that again, but essentially the meeting was scheduled, and I guess when word got around in the wider community, or as the time approached and things were still happening the way they're happening, as far as the Biden administration is posturing towards what's happening in occupied Palestine. Oh, no. This fucker is not changing anything, so shut the meeting down. Now I'll reread it because I kind of jumbled it before. The organizer of a planned meeting between President Biden's campaign manager and a group of Arab and Muslim American leaders in Dearborn said it was canceled Friday after some in the wider community objected to the gathering amid fury over Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Some Arab American political leaders from Metro Detroit, who are Democrats, flatly rejected any overtures from the Biden campaign until the president advocates for Israel to cease its military assault in Gaza, meaning no meetings until this happens, which is stop the military assault on Gaza. At least say it publicly first. Then we'll talk. Assad Tarif, I think that's, or Turfi, who was coordinating the sit down of Arab leaders and officials with Biden campaign in Dearborn, said he made the decision to cancel Friday's afternoon's group's meeting, quote, in the best interest of the community. Isn't that beautiful? For the best interest of the community. Love it. Quote, as the community got to learn about the meeting, there was definitely a lot of outrage, and ultimately the decision was made to cancel the meeting, end quote. Now, when you see this community cancel a meeting when Joe Biden is trying to, reach out their hand, and they're saying, slapping that hand away and saying, fuck you. Does that sound like a community that's going to come around in 9 months and vote for Joe Biden in Michigan? Doesn't sound like it to me. That's why I said, even if he said ceasefire, even now, it's 30,000 plus dead people, bro. It's 11,000 dead, 11,000 plus dead children. It's too late. It's too late to galvanize this community. The meeting was to be between Biden campaign manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez and 10 to 15 Arab American elected officials who office holders and representatives from the larger community organization. The Biden campaign did not comment on the cancellation on Friday's group meeting. Other meetings between Rodriguez and individual leaders of the Arab community in Michigan went forward Friday, according to two sources. The group meeting was among several that Rodriguez was convening with leaders from Michigan, including local elected officials and leaders from the Arab and Palestinian American, Hispanic, and Black communities. That's the end of, actually it's not. The meetings are part of an effort by the White House and Biden re-election campaign to meet with core constituency groups around the country, and the campaign said it will continue to have thoughtful conversations with groups. Turfy said the Biden campaign had requested the meeting with Arab leaders and officials in recent weeks as part of the listening tour. Arab leaders from the Muslim and Christian communities had intended to share firsthand the sentiments of the community and estimate that many who supported Biden in 2020 likely won't do so in November, citing 26,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza and 11,000 others displaced or facing famine. Quote, unless something drastically happens, you have lost the Arab American and Muslim community. At this point, from what I see, there's no winning them over. That was the idea of the meeting. This is not looking good for the Biden administration, and I say you brought it on yourselves. You can't sort of make a deal with Nazis, and then when the behavior of Nazis come back to bite you, you now want to go to the communities that that's having these atrocities levied upon them. Now you want to pander to them and literally not make any changes in your policy. That's what's weird. They're not coming to the community to say, hey, what policy changes could we do to make you feel better? That's not actually what they're doing. Which could be, I guess it could be effective in a way if they did that. But again, it's still in this article, it says 26,000 bodies because they're counting. Anytime I'm using a number of the people who are still missing. Like at this point, they're not gonna survive being under rubble for weeks and weeks, no food, no water. So until they find them, technically they haven't added them on. So that's why I use the number that I use when talking about this. But let me finish out some more of this article. Quote, until there's a ceasefire, the overall consensus in the community is they're not welcome here, essentially. End quote. Israel's 3-month assault in Gaza has killed more than 26,000 people, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, which does not distinguish between civilians and combatants. I don't like how they're including this. because Israel did the same thing in their initial numbers of, I think it was 1,400 people that were killed on October 7th. Another 65,000 Palestinians have been wounded since October 7th, when the war was sparked by a bloody assault. You see how they use few words to talk about what happened to Palestinians, and then they got to go into all these adjectives to talk about what happens to Israel? When the war was sparked by a bloody assault by Hamas fighters that took 240 hostages and left over 1,200 Israelis dead. Dearborn Mayor, Wayne County Commissioner, and Democratic state reps were among those invited to the meeting with Biden campaign manager. Those are the Democrats who are Arab and Muslims. So, and those had declined, and Farhat said he agreed with. So one of the reps had agreed with the cancellation. Quote, this pushback is not just about failed policy, it's about humanity. This elected rep said, quote, it's unrealistic to expect that political conversations will re-secure our support for the president when only a ceasefire can truly reopen the door. And I think I'll leave it at that right there. So this is a lot that's happening, but I'm loving the backbone that the Arab community, the Arab and Muslim communities are having, in particular in Michigan. I'm losing my train of thought a lot right now for some reason. I'm loving their spine. I'm loving, at least in their rhetoric, that they're going to stick to what they said. So I'm loving that. I'll put this back up there as we close out. But that is, let me make sure I covered both articles. Yeah. That is the presentation. Let me make sure I covered everything. And I think I covered, we covered some of the protests to show you what you should be doing to resist or show or to register your discontentment. And the best way to register your discontentment, in my opinion, is not to vote for Joe Biden, not to support the current person at the helm of this Zionist imperialist project. Now, if it was Donald Trump, it would be Donald Trump we would be saying, make sure you don't vote for. Right now, it's Joe Biden. You can say Donald Trump is going to have the same policies. That's theoretical, or that's in abstract. That is not tangible. That is a hypothetical. What we can say is Joe Biden is right now has his hand in murdering people, killing people. That's what we can say for sure. That's not hypothetical. And for the establishment to believe that there could be a genocide of a people, 30,000 people dead, over 10,000 kids dead, and you think that you can go, they'll just come back. That is such an indication that we are a colonial power, that we think of people's lives, that we don't think of people's lives enough to where you don't even think that people will register, that 30,000 dead bodies will even register to people enough to not to come out and vote for you. That is a sort of a glaring red flag that we are a colonial project. We are still a colonial project, and we are helping to facilitate another colonial project. in what we call the state of Israel, which I call now occupied Palestine. Yeah, that's gonna do it here in this presentation. Make sure you get out there and do what you can in support of the Palestinian people, whether that's doing you're participating in one of the marches, like Rome was just at a march with Saba. You know, Saba, who was on CNN, the Face the Nation clip, the viral clip. He actually drove down Dearborn and went out to one of the protests that she was having at her school and took a picture and everything. So get out there. If you can't do that, retweet content that we do. If you don't have Twitter and you can't do that, show our content to a friend or relative. Do what you can in the space that you can to help. Here's a super chat here. Thank you for this super sticker from Auto Carnage. And I think I read this, but I'll read it again. Thank you for this super chat. ARJ 1997. Corporate media, people lashing out at Biden at his campaign stops need to move on to a new fad. This outrage over his support of Palestine atrocities is so disruptive to our normal election cycle of partisan bickering. That is spot on. And I'm going to read that again because I kind of jumbled it. My eyesight is not the best. I keep saying it, but got new insurance. Wife got a new job, so got some different insurance. Now I got eye insurance, so I can go get some glasses to see what that. Although I hear that the insurance for eyewear doesn't cover too well. You usually got to still pay a lot. Anyway, I digress. Corporate media saying this: people lashing out at Biden at his campaign stops need to move on to a new fad. This outrage over his support of Palestine atrocities is so disruptive to our normal election cycle of partisan bickering. And that is spot on. Sorry for jumbling it the first time I read it through. And Old Crow says, love the content, keep bringing the fire. And that is all 9 of our super chats today. Hit that like button on your way out. We're always fighting the algorithm, so we always need help with the algorithm. So make sure you hit that like button. Other than that, thank you for watching. Let's see what video I can take you out on. I'm gonna go to my news, my feed, and take you out with one of the videos from my feed here. There's still a lot going on that I'm not reporting on. Bill Maher sees Biden streaking support among young voters and concludes that it's because the kids love Hamas. Wow. So this looks it looks like I have something to cover already. Nick and CJ already has a topic right here. I'm already preparing for another topic. Man. So I might play that as a final video. So stay tuned. That is Jose Vega on Do Dissident speaking. Any hotspot videos today, Nico or Nick? Maybe I'll end with a Nick hotspot. Because the Bill Maher video, I need to watch it enough to see if it's copywritten in parts. Like if his guest talks a lot in the clip, then it won't be too bad. But if he speaks, basically is him speaking, I may not want to play that entire thing yet. So I'm going to hold off playing that video. It's tempting, and I really would love to see it right now. But for now, let's let Nick take us out with his hotspot video. I think he played it yesterday, but just in case he didn't, I'm going to play it for all of you today. Remember, you do not have to vote red or blue. And voting red or blue, you get nothing different. So whether you don't vote, whether you vote red or blue, whether you vote for, whether you vote Trump, whether you vote Biden, or whether you don't vote, or whether you're getting the same thing, which is nothing. You're not getting, now, don't let them tell you what you're getting. The things you want, you're not getting from either party by voting for them. So why not clear your conscience and vote for a third party? Vote for Cornel West. Vote for Jill Stein. Heck, even vote for RFK Jr. if that's your cup of tea. It's not mine. Vote for Claudia de la Cruz if she's in the state, on the ballot in your state. That's what you want to do. But I'm going to leave you with this video from Nick. And this is talking about the UN court says Gaza genocide is plausible, but does not order ceasefire. So it's so lackluster, but here we go. All right. Thanks. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Put what city, state, and country you're in. Starting now, 5:20 and after, I'll put your comments up. If you put where you're from in the chat, I'll put that up as the video plays. Other than that, thank you.
The International Court of Justice just delivered a huge blow to the state of Israel as they find sufficient basis behind South Africa genocide charges against them. First off, South Africa deserves massive praise for their huge legal victory over the state of Israel. The lawyers representing South Africa will be remembered as civil rights icons and people who champion international law. These South African lawyers fully exposed the war crimes of Israel. And the ICJ has found that Israel committed war crimes. Now the entire world sees the depravity of the state of Israel. Problem is, Israel doesn't care. We even have Israeli officials on Twitter that are mocking the ICJ and The Hague, which leads to the fundamental problem of this ruling. It doesn't call for a ceasefire. The ICJ essentially told Israel to police themselves and follow the rules of an international court that they absolutely do not respect. We are already seeing Israeli officials call the ICJ anti-Semitic and call for the government to ignore the rulings, which they definitely will. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu immediately came out and said that this ruling will not impact their military campaign at all.
Israel's commitment to international law is unwavering. Equally unwavering is our sacred commitment to continue to defend our country and defend our people.
This ruling may provide a pathway towards a long-term victory over the state of Israel, but it does not alleviate the suffering of the people Israel are currently tormenting right now. This is why you have South Africa criticize the court for not coming out in support of a ceasefire. We are already seeing Western corporate media outlets, they are spinning the ICJ ruling as a rejection of a ceasefire. Also, the ICJ demanding a ceasefire would have forced genocide Joe Biden to show his hand and force a veto at the UN Security Council. So we had some missed opportunities here, but this was still a giant win and strikes the fear into Israel and the West that they are not above the law. We just got to find a way to enforce it.